So today we're reviewing
Venom: The Last Dance.
Makes me glad you remember the title because I was just thinking I didn't even remember what the title was.
Basically,
I remembered it was The Last something.
Yeah, Venom 3.
Yes, so we just saw Venom: The Last Dance and just got back from the theater. We've seen all the Venoms in this series. Wasn't really looking forward to this movie, especially. The trailers really didn't do anything for me. And we are kind of late to when this came out, but nonetheless, we are reviewing it. So, Jake, what are your initial thoughts of Venom: The Last Dance?
Venom: The Last Dance is a movie that I had not too much excitement for. I had seen the previous two movies and thought they were okay. I thought the first one was better than the second one. So I didn't really have very high expectations going into this. And I have to say that there was some interesting things in this movie and some funny moments, but overall it's just kind of a circus, kind of a mess of a movie. Yeah, it was an interesting time in the theater, I'll say the least.
Yeah, I did not have high expectations for this movie. There's fun in the movie. I mean, Venom, there's some positives. I like Eddie Brock and Venom. But yeah, this movie is just a mess. It does not have much of a focus. The main thing I can say about this movie is a mess. I have major problems with this. It was very frustrating. There's a lot of boring scenes in this movie. Unfortunately, I really wanted to like this movie. I've liked the first one. The second one was okay, but I wanted this third one to be really good in this end of the trilogy. And it just unfortunately did not deliver. But why don't we start with our positives first, because there are positives.
Yeah, I mean, positives have to start and finish with Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and then Venom, those two playing off each other. The connection, I mean, having seen all three movies, we definitely have more of a belief in the dynamic between the two of them. And I mean, I have to say, with the first movie, I'm like, is this really going to work, having this character do this in the CGI? And to me, it works. And in this movie, there's definitely some funny moments between those two. I remember a scene of Eddie Brock throwing food over his head that was funny. Some interesting scenes, some really cool settings. They're like out in I want to say the west side of America, in Nevada. Like, there's some cool stuff out there in the environment. Some pretty good action and some interesting developments in the villain of the movie. Now, that's definitely a negative the more you get into that, but like the surface level of the villain is kind of cool. And also the design of some of the villains in the movie is super cool as well. But yeah, I have to say Tom Hardy just does a great job in that role. He always has, and you definitely buy it. And I have to say the emotion aspect between him and Venom, I felt towards the end and throughout the entire movie, honestly. So while for some that might not have worked, but for me it worked basically all the time, as far as just being connected to those two characters and not wanting anything bad to happen to either one of them. So definitely a lot of character development there.
Yeah, definitely the biggest positive is Tom Hardy and as Eddie Brock, and then Venom. Their connection throughout all the movies has been great, and this movie it maintains that. I really do feel a connection watching all these movies. And the effects, the visual effects, the CGI I thought was really good on all of the creatures in this movie. The main villain, or I guess just the main creature you see on film, is this long-legged, six-legged, like weird Venom creature. I thought was really cool. Now, the usage of him and the fight scenes and what they decided to do with like who he fights, I have an issue with, because I would have really liked to have seen a better fight between him and Venom, like just one-on-one. There was some good humor. I laughed at a few scenes, so I have to give the movie credit there. And yeah, just the chemistry between these two is definitely great. And there is some okay fight scenes, some interesting ways they go with the plot, with who you see on screen. And then the usage of Venom connecting to different animals, I thought was a really cool thing. And I wish I would see more of that, but it was cool the animals he did kind of connect to.
Yeah.
But why don't we go into negatives?
Negatives for me are just the storyline and just how this movie just goes all over the place. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of down scenes that did not need to be in this. And there's also a lot of subplots that did not need to be in it at all. And I think that contributes to the amount of side characters that don't really need to be fleshed out as much. There's a whole storyline between these twins that have like a flashback here and there with this lightning storm. That has nothing to do with the movie at all. Did not need that at all. The dance sequence in this, which I thought was actually fine. I mean, at this point, it was better than the last one. I mean, I did not need it. Did not make any sense whatsoever. But I thought it was executed pretty well. And the very end is just there's no way to combat the villain in a way, the villains, and it's just you're just sitting there just watching stuff just explode, stuff just getting shredded. I mean, there's things that don't like. There's things like there's just a lot that does not make sense in this movie. There's a character in this movie that is like actively, basically going against everything, trying to basically murder everybody. And all of a sudden, he's working with the things, and then
I was really
he
wondering how they're
sacrifices
going to overcome
himself.
this.
I mean, I definitely was. There was definitely a lot of moments where I'm like, how are they going to overcome this? Because we can barely overcome one thing, and now there's 50 things. I said the villain. The more you look into that, that's a negative too, because it's a really cool situation. I wanted to get a better look at this thing, and it just kind of falls off. I mean, there is an end credit scene which I thought was pretty interesting. One was interesting. The second one was I don't know what was going on there.
The second one was stupid.
By the way, we did watch this in 3D, so I feel like that's worth pointing out.
True. We did have a 3D experience.
And I put my 3D glasses away, and I was trying to pull them out for the second end credit scene after the credits finished rolling. And I thought it was pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting scenes with the 3D. I'm not the biggest fan of 3D movies, but there were some cool situations. The credits are always the best part, in my opinion, with the 3D glasses. But this one did not need to be seen in 3D, in my opinion. And also, one more quick positive was the very beginning. There's a really cool sequence between Eddie and Venom versus people that are mistreating dogs. I thought was a really cool scene.
Yeah, negatives in this movie is definitely the storyline. It just seems lost from the beginning. Doesn't know. I just don't understand. This character's not really put on a set path, and then they just absolutely pull things out of thin air. I mean, they make up plot lines in this movie that it's like, okay, now there's this thing, and now this person's tracking this, and now if you do this, then they know exactly where you are anywhere on the planet, and they will just sprint to you 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then it's crazy. They just are making up things left and right. I was questioning things. I'm like, I've seen all these movies, but all of a sudden there's new things that don't make any sense. And I'm like, when was this explained? And then there's really stupid character decisions. There's unnecessary scenes. There's a lot of boring, slow scenes. There's characters I don't understand why they're in the movie. And it's like, there's just not enough time to explore 5,000 different characters. But they're fine. There's just random scenes that they weren't leading to anything. They weren't leading to a final scene that answered things. And then, the villain is just like unbeatable. They tease a villain that's not in the movie, so it's not even a spoiler because you see him in the first 5 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
The first second of the movie is on screen. They tease him, he doesn't show up, and he could have been really cool. The villain is just unbeatable that you actually fight, and you're thinking the whole movie, how the hell are you going to actually beat this thing? The entire movie, there's no even hint of how to beat it. That's a big negative, and yeah, this movie just did not work.
Yeah, and that didn't make any sense either, because like the villain, remember how we were questioning that whole subplot, the whole storyline of the villain makes no sense. I mean, that's a spoiler.
Yeah, for the first scene of the movie, I was already like,
that didn't make any sense.
That makes absolutely no sense. Did they think they were going to like fool people because it's the beginning of the movie?
I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, I guess this is where we're going. And then, like you said, the whole jumping from scene to scene and characters just being able to just appear places. Even the characters in the movie, there's a point where he's like, where'd that thing come from? Like,
Venom's able to teleport in the beginning, right?
Well, I don't know how that actually happened. Remember that was the whole multiverse thing?
Yeah,
I don't know how that reversed, but it did reverse somehow.
This movie, it's just I'm saying they just pull things out of thin air.
But in my opinion, it's definitely a mixed bag movie. There's some really good points, some very okay points, and some points that didn't need to be in it. And that's really where I'm at with it. It's definitely above average in my opinion, just because of the Eddie Brock and Venom scenes and some of the comedy and then some of the CGI and just as far as the special effects go. But when you try to put it together as a whole movie, it is kind of a mess. And yeah, there's a lot to be desired. And I'm gonna have to go with a 6 out of 10 for my final score. Overall, like I said, final verdict for me, like there were some good moments, but overall I was a little bit confused and there could have been a lot better. But again, there were some emotional moments in this, not just at the end when stuff's going on between Eddie Brock and Venom, but also there's a family in a van that brings a couple of good moments between Eddie and Venom as well. So there's definitely some emotional moments, but like I said, it's like 80% all over the place, maybe more, maybe 90% all over the place, and 10% there's like a set subplot or storyline going on. So I'm going to go with a 6 out of 10 for Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah, so for me, I really liked the first one. The second one was okay, but honestly, this one, I think it's on par with the second, maybe a little higher. I don't know. I just, one thing I really like about these movies, superhero movies, is the action. And the action in this movie just doesn't work. So there's just a major hole there. I mean, Eddie Brock and Venom is such a great combo that, like, you can easily make a great movie around this. But when the action doesn't fill in, you have a lot of unnecessary scenes, you have stupid character decisions, you just have blatant things that don't make sense. You have a villain that you can't fight at all. A physical threat that can't be fought at all. That is just so frustrating to me. I mean, you're just watching the movie helplessly, just watching these things run around and get shredded. And there's just no hope, there's no game plan, there's no plot here. So it's really frustrating. I wanted to like this movie, but I'm going to have to go with a 5 out of 10. Because this movie just, I like a lot of stuff about it. I like some things, the characters. In the beginning scene is cool. They tease a cool villain. But yeah, just unfortunately, this movie doesn't work. And the first Venom will definitely be the best one.
First one definitely, like we were saying at the theater, we thought the first one was more grounded in reality, which is why it was probably the best film of the three. I do think it was better than the second one. This one, the third one was better than the second, in my opinion. So you'll have to go back and check my score for the last one. If I gave that anything higher than a 6, I need to redact that. My gut was telling me I'm going to give Venom, Let There Be Carnage, a 6.5 out of 10.
If I gave the first one 8.5, I'll probably give this a 7 out of 10. I'd say a 7 out of 10 is pretty accurate because I have a lot of flaws and I like the first one better, but there was some stuff to like.
Whatever the word is, but I feel like we're getting better with our score system, but overall, though, like I said, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Can't give it a 5 out of 10. Thanks for watching our non-spoiler review of Venom: The Last Dance. Let us know in the comments what you gave this movie and for your score. And what is your next most anticipated superhero movie the rest of 2024 going into 2025? So, yep. See you later, guys, and we'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.